right, welcome to the daily crypto update. I call it crypto for the rest of us. Those of us that are looking to invest for the short term, invest for the long term, and believe that these crypto markets are going to overtake even the stock markets. Where else can you partake in some of these new technologies that are not on an exchange? You can't buy stock in them, but you can buy crypto, which essentially is the same thing. Every day I start off with this total 2, because you've got Bitcoin and then you have all the other coins. If you're not familiar, all the other coins are considered the altcoins, including Ethereum. So if you're looking at TradingView, which I love to use, they've got the total market. We'll just pull that up here, which is all crypto, and let's take a look at that. Total market, if you look, I've got it here going back to 2022. Here's where it peaked. We're not far off from that peak, but if you don't think we're in a bull run, just take a look at this. Here's over the last year of being in a bear market going sideways, and then let's see, this is October of 23, having gone from, what's that, $1 trillion to now 2.46 trillion. And that's quite a rise in a short period of time. And many people will tell you that we're just in the beginning of this bull market, yet we've had quite a meteoric rise, and this is the total crypto market. So a lot of that, is of course 1.3, I believe, trillion is just Bitcoin. So let's take Bitcoin out and look at everything else. So that would be the total 2, which excludes Bitcoin. Now you can see back here around the same time that run up was, looks like 1.6 trillion. Now we are around, 1.1. We peaked around 1.25 trillion. But again, back in October, we were around 500 billion. So it's doubled in those 6 to 8 months. And most people, myself included, believe that this is just the beginning and altcoins will start to really take off. Theory being, well, not theory, fact, that in the past you can see that the Bitcoin rally has preceded the other coins. The idea being people make their gains in Bitcoin, they take some of that and they put it into these altcoins and they take off. All right, what I want to talk about today is for those of you who think Bitcoin is not real, or Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme, whatever it may be. Are you familiar with, I'm going to show you something interesting. Microstrategy, started by Saylor quite a while ago, if you followed his company. Man's a certifiable genius, MIT, incredible background. Company just pumps off cash. Essentially, he can say it better than I, but I'll just put it into what I believe to be the bare minimum, and he states, I've got all this cash on my balance sheet. Why do I want to hold cash? It goes down in value. Look at the last 100 years. It's just slowly going to zero. That makes no sense. Let me hold an asset. Other than that, what's the best asset I can find? He believed it was Bitcoin. And currently, as of May 1st, 2024, he owns 214,000 Bitcoins, which I believe is around 1% of the market. And his total cost was $7.5 billion. I think he's even taken on some debt for that. But his price was around 35,000. The price now, at the moment, I think is around 68,000. So he's looking at 14 to 15 billion worth. He's doubled the amount of money. Now imagine if he had just kept that 7 billion as cash on his balance sheet over the last couple of years. I think he's been acquiring for 3 or 4 years. I can't remember when he started. But think about that. That cash would still be worth 7.5 billion. But actually worth less because of inflation. Now, I couldn't find on Google, because I was curious, any large public companies with a substantial amount of gold or silver on their balance sheets. And I had to go to ChatGPT, and the only thing I found was it basically said it's pretty much just mining companies, and eventually they sell it to cover their operational costs, that being gold and silver. So here's an article talking about, says companies in 2 capital markets are looking to implement the business model that Microstrategy pioneered in the US. In other words, it doesn't say who or where, and I don't know why it doesn't get into who. but they're talking about other companies following Saylor's playbook. There's one called Metaplanet, a Tokyo-listed public company, which is going to use Bitcoin as a reserve asset to protect against the weakness of the yen, just like companies in the US are using Bitcoin as a reserve asset to protect against the weakness of the dollar. Okay. There's 21 million Bitcoin, a little less because of the fact that I think the original individual had 1 million. That they don't know who that is, but it's sitting in a wallet somewhere. And then, of course, there's been loss. But let's just say it was 21 million. Well, if companies start putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet instead of holding dollars, that's substantial. They're going to eat up a lot of that Bitcoin pretty fast and drive up that price, theoretically, right? They're not holding gold. And if you hear, you should watch some of the videos of Michael Saylor talking about this because it's fascinating. He brings up so many good points. For example, you can buy real estate in New York, but if the jurisdiction starts to tax you or becomes unfavorable for some reason, you're not going to pick up your building in New York and drop it in Miami. You're not going to drop it in Texas. You're not going to drop it in Switzerland. It's just not going to happen, right? Okay, so maybe you buy gold. Well, gold's physical gold. How are you going to move that across state lines easily or across country lines? You're not. But Bitcoin, well, you could send it all to another wallet in a split second. More importantly, you get on a plane, you fly somewhere else, you still have access to your Bitcoin like anything else. So if this becomes a reserve asset on balance sheets, that's going to be substantial. I thought that was fascinating. The other thing I wanted to point out, for those of you that may still be skeptical about Bitcoin, is that here's a report that says, as of now, this is as of, let's say, June 1st, 562 million people globally now own digital currencies. In 2023, it was 420 million. That's another 142 million people in less than 12 months have started to acquire a digital asset. And that's 6.8% of the world's population. Well, think about it. You've got credit card companies coming out talking about using crypto. You've got PayPal with its own stable coin. So this is crypto in general, but the adoption is taking off. So when looking at this, and we look at just a couple years ago, altcoins at 1.6 trillion, and now they're already at 1.1. And I've heard people estimate 2.5 trillion, 4 trillion, 6 trillion, you name it. Point is, I think we're at the beginning of this cycle. So stay tuned for more videos. Every day we'll go over typically either news and or tools that I've found very useful. There's one I'm going to show tomorrow, which I find to be fascinating because it gives almost like an RSI indicator, relative strength, where typically people will say below 20 or 30, you're accumulating, and above 70 or 80, it's an indicator that goes 0 to 100, you're selling. Well, there's a similar indicator which pits Bitcoin against altcoins, and now it's flashing green or red or whatever you want to call it, meaning it's the beginning of that altcoin season. So I've been acquiring, and I think it's still a great time to acquire. Again, never financial advice, but let's see what the future holds. Thanks for watching. Talk to you tomorrow.